Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we are here to share our love of motorsport. That's it. We can be found on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram primarily. Just search for the Hard Compound on any of those and come and find us, come and join in the fun. We put out 3 written articles every day here in the UK in the morning, at lunchtime and in the evening. And we cover everything in the world of motorsport, really, from F1 to touring cars to GT racing to sports cars, rallying, bikes, IndyCar, NASCAR, anything we can shake a stick at, really. And these come in the form of race reviews, race previews, throwbacks, breaking news, livery reveals, driver news. And I said anything that we can shake a stick at. So do come along, join the fun, and we will see you very soon in the next few days. We also do live video interviews, just like this one, and just like this one, these are streamed live on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. So head over to YouTube and give us a search and a follow on there as well. We've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with some fantastic guests, over 130 of them now, which is incredible. And I'm not going to name them all, you'll be very glad to know. But just to give you a few names that we've spoken to from across the motorsport spectrum, we've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti, with Mr. Jackie Hicks and John Watson, Hans Stuck, Brian Redman, Frank Durney from Williams all those years ago. We've spoken with Takuma Sato, Emanuele Pero, Martin Donnelly, Gianmaria Bruni, Mika Salo, Mark Shearer, Carl Wendlinger, Ari Lyndike, Willie Ribbs, Max Gertz, Alex Palou, Will Power, Alan Jr., Derek Warwick, David Bradman, Mark Blundell, Derek and Connor Daly, lots of the current touring car grid, guys such as Tom Chilton, Jake Hill, Jason Plato from the past, Paul Radicic, Frank Sittner, Steve Soper, Andy Prio, and many others. And just a few weeks, 2 weeks ago, we had Stephen Jelly on, which leads us very nicely on to our guest this evening, because our guest is one of Stephen's teammates this year at Team Parker Racing in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. And she's done a whole lot of fantastic racing and brilliant stuff over the last few years as well. We only have 1 hour this evening, so we're going to rattle through, and I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to bring her in right now. So please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Abbie Eaton.
Hello.
Good evening, Abbie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Are you sure you didn't name all of them? Because there was a fair few there.
They're the ones that are sitting at the top of my head, and there are many others. I'm sure someone's going to ask me to name them all one day. But yes, quite a long list. But yeah, and you're now part of a illustrious group. So thank you very much for coming on, having a chat. I know you're very busy, so thank you for coming on this evening.
That's all right, no problem. And yeah, apologies for the background. I'm in a random Airbnb, not too far from Croft, actually. So I'm testing in a couple of days there and got some stuff up here tomorrow. So yeah, been on the road for 4 hours and ready to go now.
Yeah, fantastic. That's why we're going to rattle through so we can let you go and have some dinner. Guys, in the comment section, if you have any questions or comments, do put them in, whichever platform you are tuning in on. Put them in. We'll see them in real time. I can see it's working. Good evening, James Steele Racing and Sheila Kersley and everyone else who's tuning in. Any comments, put them in, have a chat amongst yourselves, and we'll work your comments and questions in. But we have got about an hour, so let's get cracking. Firstly, how was Zandvoort at the weekend, apart from wet?
I genuinely think it was actually probably one of the wettest race weekends I think I've ever experienced. It just did not stop, and it was torrential for the entire thing. That was with my dad's Holden, so we've got a Holden Commodore 1983 Peter Brock replica, and we've had it since 2015. Great fun, but with historic cars, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they throw hissy fits for quite a long time, and the car's currently in its hissy fit. So we tried to race it at the Super Touring event at Brands about four weeks ago now. It must have been two weeks ago, and out of the 4 races we didn't actually finish one, so things just kept breaking on it and so on. And the main reason is basically over the winter, my dad's done a load of changes to the car and it's just teething problems. And this is the first time that we'd run it. So we did go to Zandvoort eventually, and we did manage to finish a race. And it was because we didn't finish the first race, we started 26th and then got up to finish second. So it did finish, which
Wow.
is a relief to my poor dad that's putting all the effort in on it.
Yeah, and it finished well. That is quite a that's quite a performance. So when it works, it really works.
Yeah,
Which,
exactly. Just
which
needs
is great,
to
and
keep going.
just needs to keep working. And also, yeah, the New Zandvoort circuit. I went 2018 before they redid it all, and it looks like it's really cool. I mean, with the banking on the last turn and all that. A couple of drivers have said it takes away the fun, though. I thought, surely we all love a bank turn, don't we?
Well, I wasn't lucky enough to drive it beforehand, but I think really with the new bank corners, it's more usable for the single seaters or cars with aero on it. So, um, what other people have said that have driven the old circuit is like the second to last corner. That used to be a really good place to kind of overtake, and it used to be a little bit of a, is it flat, is it not flat? Whereas now it's easy flat, and you don't have to think about it. But yeah, the first time I drove it was with W Series, and it was absolutely incredible. And I think it's probably in one of my top 3 circuits. It's just awesome. I love it.
Cool. Love to hear that.
Mm.
So one of the early guests I had on one of these chats was Ari Lyondike, and he's very proud that last corner's named after him. He's like, he's well chuffed with that. But no, good. I mean, glad the car was running well eventually. You mentioned your dad there. That's kind of where it all started, isn't it, for you in the world of motorsport?
Yeah, so my dad's raced basically anything and everything he can get his hands on ever since he was kind of 16 years old. So it was kind of inevitable growing up around motorsport and growing up at race circuits, there would be something that I'd want to do. And some people ask in interviews, did I get pressured to do it, or was I pushed in to do it? And it's absolutely not the case. It was the opposite. My mum and dad wanted everything else for me, but just not motorsport. They really tried to steer me down a bit more of a sensible path, but it didn't put me off. And 2 or 3 years of pestering them, we got there, and they support me 100%. And I think motorsport is very all encompassing, and you need the support of your family around you. And this is now my 22nd year of racing. So mum's put up with dad's racing for 20, 30 years, and then she's put up now with 22 years of mine.
And she thought it was finally over, but
I know,
no such joy. And I guess being around motorsport, it was always there was always a possibility that it was going to happen. And you obviously went karting fairly young, didn't you? And did it for a bit of fun, and I guess just worked your way up through the ranks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, kind of as a young kid, I started when I was 10 years old. The normal path is into karting, and then if you want to progress into cars, and karted for 4 years. And really the money in that last year, we did Super One, which is a national championship, and the money that we spent on doing that, we actually could move into a series called Sax Max, which is now the Junior Saloon Championship. And so my dad built a car when I was 15, and then 16, I think it was 16, or maybe at the end of my 15th year, we made the step into cars. And I remember saying to my dad, but I can't change, like, I don't know how to drive, Dad. How am I going to know when to change gear? And he's like, oh, you'll learn, you'll be fine. And really, when I first got into the car, that's when I felt, actually, this is something I want to do as a career. I just felt so much more at home, and so much, I don't know, just the excitement of driving a car on a circuit was just unreal.
I can imagine. I must admit, I'd love to do more of it. And I guess once it kind of starts, the bug bites hard, and you just want to, and you start getting competitive, and you want to move forward. I mean, that first season, moving from karts into cars, obviously it's not into a single seater car, which a few guests have said is almost like a big go-kart, but you're moving into a proper car where you're off center, there's weight distribution and depth perceptions and all that. Did you take a while to get to grips with that, or was it just a case of getting in, going, and just learning as you went?
Getting in and learning as I went, really. I think towards the end of that first year, I think I managed to grab a podium or 2. So it was fairly obvious that I was gelling with it quite nicely. And I think the bit that I really enjoyed about it is that the cars move around a bit more, and you have got to, it's not very digital like you have in a single seater or in a go-kart. You have to think about weight transfer and getting the car to do what you want it to do. And I just loved the car moving around underneath me. And we did it for the second year, and I finished 3rd in the championship, which my, I suppose, main competitor on the track was Josh Cook at the time. So,
Yeah.
there are some decent drivers and names that are now in touring cars and so on that started back in the day with us in Sax Max.
Yeah, so it's obviously it's a good proving ground, and it continues to be as the Junior Saloon Car Championship, of course.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had I've got you finished 14th overall in your first season, but then 4th in the second season, and then you moved up to the Production Touring Car Championship. I mean, was that just like a natural progression? Did you feel like you'd done the junior stuff and it was time to move up?
Yeah, and I was also too old. So
yes, that was a part of it.
And yeah, it just felt right to make that jump, and I was very lucky to do it with a team, and that was my first time racing in a team that wasn't family run operation. And yeah, had a really good year, really successful year. Won the Class B championship, or the class that I was in, the championship of that, with kind of 15 out of 18 wins. So it was a really positive first step into senior racing. And yeah, again, that's cemented in my brain that actually this is something that I want to do professionally. And that's really the time when I started taking things even more seriously than I was before.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I guess, and you say it was a class championship, but it was second overall as well, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't, there was loads of people in the class above you, loads ahead of you. There was just one, which is properly impressive, especially for the first season in the series. I did spot that Paul O'Neill was on the grid.
He was, yeah.
He's always lively. We like Paul. He's fun.
Yeah, I remember actually it was at Donington Park when he did a round as a guest driver, and I remember my dad saying, "Go and say hello to him. Go and have a chat with him." And he was super nice then, and like what you see is what you get, and he's one of my really good friends now. So yeah, it was a great championship with some good pedalers in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul did say he was going to come on here, but he's so busy, isn't he? Goodness me. He's doing everything.
God. What an excuse. Come on, Paul.
I know. Paul, if you see this, come on.
Put your stuff out, mate.
Pull your finger out, sort it out.
Yeah.
I did read, though, at the end of that season, you were sort of all set for British GT, and it kind of all fell through. Was that true?
Yeah, just funds. Lack of funds. So we were going to do a deal with Beechdene to race the Aston GT4, and I had someone that was kind of trying to raise funds for me, and he was able to put together an event, and all seemed extremely positive. There was loads of people in attendance, loads of people excited to get on board, and then actually the main guy that was interested decided to go and spend the money on yachts instead. So yeah, that fell through at the last minute, and the money that was basically put in to race the production touring car, that basically wiped us out for a bit. So yeah, had a year out afterwards, and I'm trying to think what year. You probably know more than me about my year and timeline. I did a one round of Mazda MX-5s in a Mark 1, and I think that might have been 2010. Was it 2010 or 2011?
I've got into 2010.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it basically, we were looking at alternatives that were kind of cost effective and had good grids. And my dad had seen the MX-5 championships, and the grids were absolutely huge. Like, they had to have, like, I think it was A finals, B final, like there was just tons and tons of these cars. And we got a really good deal. I think it was like 500 quid for the weekend to hire this car, and we hopped in and away we went, and managed to finish third. So that again lit the fire under my bum, and I think it kind of gave Dad a little bit of a taste of, well, actually, an MX-5 is really cost effective to build and to run. So maybe this is something that we can do as a family again. And, we can keep the cost under control, running it as a family. So at the time, the Mark 3s had just come out, and that kind of, interested my dad, and he ended up building a Mark 3. And that was actually, we were really lucky. We've had a sponsor that's a family friend of ours that actually used to support my dad, and he has always kind of helped me along the way. So he actually paid for the car to be built, or bought the car, paid for the car to be built, and then we raised the funds externally to run the car. So without him, then I wouldn't have done a lot of racing. So I owe a lot to Mike. So big up for Mike.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. Pretty much all these chats that we have, there's always and then I met so-and-so story, and it just kept things ticking over, or it took in a different path, and yeah, motorsport's full of those kind of people, and we need them. Everyone
Yeah.
needs a helping hand, especially in this most expensive sport in the world of ours.
Yeah. Good, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm pleased to pick
Just to, I mean, you did a few, like sporadic races here and there, getting funds and everything. But was it 2014? Was it the second or third season in the series? It all clicked. A hell of a season. I think was it you won the title? Was it by a point? I think it was.
Yeah, so
Right at the very end. That must have been a great season.
oh no, it was stressful. It was so stressful. And even now I know the outcome. If someone said, "Would I do it again?" No, I wouldn't do it again. It was so stressful. So yeah, my dad built the car in 2011 and 2012. I think we did two or three races, and then my mum was ill, and we basically had to just park that and deal with our minds weren't in the right place for racing. So we did a couple of races in 2012. 2013 again, it was kind of still the same element, but we did some the autumn series, it was called, at the end of 2013, and got on the podium a few times. So that kind of was like, right, okay, we've got a chance to be competitive here. And 2014, let's see if we can really go to town, try and get some sponsoring and do a full season. And yeah, we managed to make it work. And it was a season of ups and downs, as is usually the case in motorsport. It's rare to have kind of plain sailing through a season. And yeah, the last round was, I came into it with a 17-point lead and really should have just had quite a relaxed weekend. I didn't particularly need to finish high. I just needed to finish and be all right. And then the only time we had reliability issues through the year was that round, and my engine failed in race one, which we have something called drop scores. So you were able to drop two rounds basically and pick up your next best finish. So race one, engine failed, so I basically picked up points for sixth, which was my last next best. And then in race two, I had to start from the back of the grid, and that was with an engine that my dad got out of a smashed up car from a salvage yard down the road. So basically rang up and said, have you got a car, an MX-5 engine that runs? And they said, yes. Paul Sheard lent us his trailer. My dad went down there and they swapped the engines overnight to this random stock engine. And I was starting last on the grid. And I thought, well, probably the likelihood of me winning this is going to be very slim. So all year, you put pressure on yourself to finish and to not make mistakes. And you actually forget to enjoy yourself. So on this occasion, I said to my dad, look, whatever happens, I'm just going to go out and enjoy it. And I was super fast, apparently. So I was got the fastest lap by a second and a half, and got all the way through to finish just behind the guy that was second in the championship. So my rival, basically. So I thought, right, this is brilliant. I just need to chill here now. And then with that, someone hit me off the circuit. And so that was, the YouTube videos. It's on the onboards on YouTube. If you want to have a look at it, just search Abbie, Eaton, Donington Park. There is swearing involved, so a little warning there. But the thing that basically saved the day was that fastest lap basically gave me a point, and that's what made me have one more point than my rival, because we would have been tied on points, but he would have won because he had one more. We both had the same amount of wins, but he had one more second place than me.
So it was on the count back, he'd have won it in second.
Yeah. So thank God. I mean, the engine was not great at all, but it held up, and thank God, because that could have easily gone bang.
Wow. Yeah. It came down to a fastest lap with a smashed up old engine that was put together, late in the day.
Yeah. Thank God all the, my dad and all the mechanics put all the bits on it properly.
Yeah.
We did actually do a photo shoot in the morning of where we did tracking and stuff, and I was like, please, can I do it just to make sure this engine works? And I remember Drew, the clerk of the course, was saying to me, right, I don't want you holding back and giving it beans. I know why you're doing this. So I did anyway, and it was fine.
Yeah, why not? Be all right. And it all worked out. So yeah, that's another, like 2 championships, and then you made the step up to the GT Cup, which is still going. I actually went to the Brands Hatch round. I got invited down there, which was very, very good. That's a cool series. I like it. How did it all come about? Was it Jeff Steele racing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't actually. Oh, do you know what it was? So Jeff's not too far from my parents, and I think we'd met at a previous round at some point, and basically he had a car and a gentleman driver that basically needed someone to fill in and do the races on the Saturday. So the gent driver only wanted to do the Sunday race, and I could do the Saturday races. So it basically was half the price, and it got me experience in a car that was, I can't think how much brake. I think it was like 450 brake, maybe nearly 500 brake horsepower, a sequential box, and everything. So yeah, did that. And again, that was only select rounds. So I think we did 5 races or something, just what the money I could afford, or we could afford to spend on it, basically. But yeah, that was a great experience, and learnt a lot in that, really. And that was, thanks to other people giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. And I saw that you stuck it on the podium at Donington, which I think was like the second race, which is pretty good. Only the second race in the car. Was the BMW M3, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Stick it on the podium, and again, it's all experience and a bigger car and a bit more oomph. And
well, it was my first time driving on slicks as well.
wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
cold slicks was interesting initially, but I got to grips with it all right.
Yeah, you got it all.
Learn
heated up.
fast in those situations. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. In at the deep end.
Yeah.
That was at 15. 16, I saw this was a really good switch into the British GT Championship, which I'm really big on. I'll be going down to Brands Hatch in September, which I'm looking forward to. Thanks to Max Gertz. So Max, if you see this, thank you very much, mate. Plug. And but yeah, I mean, after driving in the BMW at Donington, were you kind of eyeballing GT racing? Was it something that had kind of taken your fancy, or was it just a case of seeing what could come up at the right time?
Yeah, I'd always kind of wanted to go into GTs, from even when I was doing Saxos, the aim was to try and get into British GT, but it was just money, kind of didn't allow me to do that. And thankfully I was able to kind of reach out to Maserati and a few of the sponsors that were able to allow me to make that step up into British GT and into the GT4 Championship. So it was a pro-am pairing. So it was myself and another Yorkshire lad called Marcus Hergarth. And he'd actually raced in GT Cup as well when I'd done the few rounds that I'd done. So that's kind of how we met. Right. And the team that he was running in were looking to make the step into British GT. So everything kind of came together all at the right time. And yeah, the melting pot happened, and it worked. We were able to join the grid, and we finished second in Pro-Am in the Pro-Am Championship and 4th overall. And to be quite honest, we should have probably won both outright. But the team that we were running with, it was just too much of a step up for them. And when you're on circuit fighting for 1/10 of a second, and then in the pit stops you're throwing away sometimes 30 seconds, it's that you're never going to be able to get that back, basically. So but having said that, it was a fantastic experience, and to be able to still finish second in Pro-Am is fantastic. And even to finish 4th overall in the overall championship was something really cool. And I think that really cemented that, yes, GTs was kind of the stuff that I wanted to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was in the Maserati Gran Turismo, which I think was a very, very cool car. First time they were on the grid in like 20 years as well. So that was kind of a cool thing to see. I've always liked Maseratis, and underrated cars. People make jokes about Italian cars and reliability and stuff, but I love a Maserati. Was it a good car to drive?
Yeah, it was great fun, and it was probably quite unique in comparison to the GT4s that were on the grid. So it was quite big and quite heavy, but it had a good motor in it. It was super fast from that regard, but it just was a little bit difficult to get stopped and go around the corners. But that's what the balance of performance is all about in GT racing. And it was nice to just be in something a little bit unique. So it was the only 2 in the country that the team had bought. And I think actually, if someone bought one and used it as a track day car, I saw it the other day. Where was it? I know someone was using it at Brands Hatch. So It's still around, still knocking about.
Fantastic. That's all right. Good. Yeah, it hasn't been retired yet. We like that. So folks in the comments, I have seen your comments, and we're going to work them in very soon, because we're coming to that kind of part of the part of the interview. So I want to say hello to Sheila Kersley of Kersley Motorsport. Her son Harvey is in the Junior Saloon Championship, and she's loved hearing your story. Spent some time with the Kersley team. They're in the Coupe Cup this year with a few drivers and in the JSCC, and they are brilliant people. So go and check them out on social media, folks. Kersley Motorsport, plug for them. They are good people, real motorsport family. Yes, 2017. Very quick. I saw that you originally had planned to take a year out again. Was it kind of, or was it planned, or was it just budget, or what was the situation?
Have a guess. What do you think it was? Money.
I'm going to say money.
Money.
Usually
unfortunately, as most of the interviewees probably tell you. We just didn't have the funds to do it again, basically. In an ideal situation, we would have loved to have done another year in British GT, but and it's crazy now. Actually, the cost to do British GT and GT4 is just back then you'd be paying that to do GT3. Now you pay to do GT4, which is absolutely bonkers.
Wow.
So yeah, just finance related. But I did get an opportunity with basically a guy from Lebanon was racing in Blancpain, and he wanted to have a female driver alongside him, and basically got the call from someone saying, look, there's a shootout happening at Monza in a Ferrari GT3 car. You know, would you like to be put forward for it? I was like, yeah, obviously. And yeah, I must. So I'd never driven anything remotely as fast as that, and it absolutely blew my brains out. Like, I was so like out of my comfort zone, and I'd never driven Monza, which obviously Monza is Temple of Speed, which it's a little bit daunting to get stuck into. And basically rocked up, and there was me and two of the girls that were basically going forward for this seat, and one of which had actually been racing these cars for like 3 years. So I was thinking, oh my God, like this is going to be really tough here, and I'm fairly certain I know the outcome of this, of who's going to get the drive. And we were there for 2 days. Had a go in it in the morning of the first day. Was a few seconds off the pace, as kind of I would expect myself to be on a new circuit in a brand new car. But then they never put me back in the car again, so they didn't allow me to jump back in and have another go. So that was it. I had my first drive on that first day, and they didn't put me back in. Day 2 turns up. One of the other girls has gone home, and it's just basically me and this girl who's raced the car for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And she was in and out the car all day doing setup work and this and that. And I basically said to them, look, it's obvious you've picked her, and that's fine. I don't mind that. But why am I still here? Like, can I go? And in the end, I was looking for flights to leave, and I just thought, I was really, really cross. And Northerners do get cross sometimes. And
my mum's from Leeds, I know.
Yeah, there you are. And I couldn't get a flight. I couldn't find a flight that was suitable to go. So I had to stay there basically till the bitter end. Right. And at 5 p.m, the team said, okay, if you want to go in the car now, you can have a go. I was like, right, okay. Well, I'm either going to smash this car to smithereens, or I'm going to be really fast. And went out, and basically my first flying lap was quicker than any of the laps that this other girl had done. And you just saw the team, like, the jaws drop. And basically I came in, and I remember the guy who was going to be the other driver, the owner of it, basically came, and he like crawled into the passenger seat, which in a GT car is all stripped out, and there's like batteries and all sorts of stuff in there. And he clambered over it, and he like sat next to me like this, and he said, why couldn't you tell me you drive like that? And I'm like, well, I didn't really get the opportunity to.
I didn't really know it, really.
And he's like, well, we're putting some brand new slicks on, and if you do this time, then the drive's yours. But the slicks haven't been in the ovens, so they're freezing cold, because they basically turned all the ovens off because we were going to go home. Which, again, bearing in mind, I'd never actually had the chance to have kind of proper hot tires on a GT3 car. Granted, it's going to be similar to a GT4, but not quite that level. And cold slicks it was. So went out and built up, and then I was thinking, God, this time's not going to come, because I was just so kind of, you have to take your time to get these tires in. And then time popped up on my dash, and it was the time that I needed to do. Next lap, even quicker. And then they called me in and said, right, well, the drive's yours. So a little tip on, even if you think that you've lost something, like perseverance is key, and just try and stick at it, even if it's the absolute opposite of what you want to do. If you know you're capable and you really believe in yourself, then don't give up until the very bitter end. And then you might get something that was cool. So we did that one-off drive, and
Amazing.
we ended up winning the class. So
yeah, and you were the first female to win a to get a class win in the series, which is a cool thing that no one can ever. No one can ever do that again. No one can get the first one. Not the gender thing, but still pretty cool.
yeah,
Cool thing
I'll
to
take that. And
have that. That's amazing. And a Ferrari at Monza to get in and do that.
pretty special, yeah. And I can't tell you how much it blew my brain. I remember putting my foot down, coming out the pit lane flat out, and I was just like, "Holy s, this is fast!" And I was like, "What? I'm gonna have to race this." And I remember I was so out of shape as well, because I'd not obviously trained for anything like that. And I think I had to do an hour in the car, which is those GT3s are fairly physical in terms of the G-forces and stuff you pull, and the temperature in the cockpit. So yeah, it was definitely a baptism of fire, but something really cool to have done and had the opportunity to do as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, as a non-racer myself, and I've spoken to a few people who've done F1 and everything and various things around Monza, and they've obviously done a few, they've done it a few times before they've got into a super powerful car. I always liked the Ascari chicane. Obviously, when I was really young, there wasn't a chicane there; it was just a left-hander, which is bonkers. What's it like going through there in a car where you're thinking, "Oh my good God," and then you get to that sort of left, right, left, the high-speed bit? That must be cool, because everyone talks about the parabolica and everything else, but I've always loved that part of the circuit.
Yeah, Ascari is probably the most technical part of the entire track, and it's so crucial because the exit of Ascari, like, it's such a long drag down to Parabolica. And I just remember every time getting to it thinking, because you have to get on the power so early, or what felt so early for me, so inexperienced in these cars. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is just terrifying. Like, it was so fast. And I'd love to go and have a go now, now that I'm a lot more experienced and so on, because I suppose never really got to make friends with it properly, because I was just like a little deer in headlights, bless me. But it was incredible all the same. I remember going through Parabolica and having to drive. The GT4 didn't have traction control, whereas the GT3, you have a million traction settings and you have to lean on the traction and let the car do the work for you. And I remember coming out of Parabolica, and then on the data they were saying you need to just stand on the power, just go full power early and let the traction catch the car. I remember forcing myself to do it and just thinking, oh my God, this feels so wrong, because in a normal car without the traction, you just spin it, you'd spin immediately. So yeah, it was a learning curve like that, but a very, very enjoyable one.
Wow, that's cool. That's amazing. I see my friend Chris Josie's tuned in. Evening, Chris. He says he says he loves you. There you go.
Love you too, Chris.
Love Abbie.
Thanks.
Good man, Chris. David McCrum, he says hi. Nick on his cameras put some little heart emoji, so he's obviously loving the chat. Thank you very much. Here's a good question, which is going to test your memory. James Seal Racing, evening James, on YouTube. He says, what was your best lap around Monza in a Ferrari? Do you remember?
So James is actually a pupil of mine. I coach him in MX5s.
Yes.
And I'm with him next week, I think.
Yeah, you said you're a top coach. So
my best lap time, I can't remember. I think it was a 147.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's not bad going, is it? That is some rapid going. We've got a few more questions which we're going to come to towards the end. But no, thank you, James. And I look forward to. I'm going to keep an eye out for your name, just to see if you can make some step up.
Yeah, keep going as you're going, James, and then we'll get you on here.
Absolutely. 2 years from now, whatever. Yes, absolutely. Get it in the diary. Well, no, very cool. I just want to sidestep. It was around this kind of time that you got involved with the Grand Tour. Obviously, the fallout from Top Gear with Messrs May and Hammond and Clarkson and stuff. How did that all come about? Because I think that's where a lot of people kind of recognised you from, if I hadn't been seeing you race before.
I got an email, basically. It's a long and short of it. They reached out to me and said that they were basically looking for a driver for a certain kind of segment of the show, and they wanted me to come down and kind of see what I was like on camera, see how I interacted with the crew, and ultimately do some laps in some cars on the Abolodrome. And when I got there, they said, look, there's some lap times have been set in each of these cars, so jump in and let's see how quick you are. And they wouldn't tell me what the job role was, and they said, oh, it's just because we might have some races coming up and we need to make sure that you're kind of fast enough to be in the races. Obviously I kind of guessed what it was probably going to be for, but they wouldn't tell me that. So I did a morning and drove in 3 different cars, and then they invited me back to do another day with a few more cars. I think there was about 6 or 7 in total, and basically just to see on the kind of various cars that they are GT3s, hot hatches, old cars. They had a proper mixture. If I could kind of be fast enough in all those kinds of cars, thankfully I was. Certainly, 2017 I'd obviously had that amazing first part of the year with the Ferrari, thinking, right, this is going to be great, I'm going to get opportunities here in terms of more racing, and then nothing happened. So when this opportunity came around with the Grand Tour, it's basically all I had, so I had to give it my all. And thankfully it was good enough, and they invited me to the headquarters in London and offered me the job as the test driver. So yeah, something pretty cool to have on the CV. And I probably, much the same as your listeners, grew up watching the guys on Sunday evening. You come down, watch it with your family. So to work with them was something really special.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I did see somewhere when I was just looking through, doing a bit of research and stuff. I think it was like James May, and I think he just said, "Oh, we had a few drivers, and she was the best and the fastest." So it was almost like a no-brainer. He said so, which is a nice thing to have. I mean, okay, it's from James, I don't know James, but he's not known for his speed. But anyway, we'll skip over that. Just quickly, the circuit always looks kind of cool. The Abolodrome, it looks kind of tricky just because of it's slightly undulating and stuff like that. Is it a tricky circuit to drive?
Yeah, it's really sketchy. So there's no runoff. The runoff are trees, and most of the corners are blind off-camber corners that basically keep on going and going, and you can't see the exit. So there's a lot of them where you have to commit to full power before you can see the exit and basically judge how much the car's going to run out. So yeah, it was again, had to learn fairly quickly, and I was trying to push it as much as I can and get the most out of these cars. And yeah, again, really, really cool experience. And it's funny, the thing that I suppose sticks in my mind is how many cool cars I got to drive. Like, so many cars that I would never ever have had the opportunity to drive, and here they are saying, right, go as fast as you can in that. Some of them they told me to try and look after, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to crack on and get the most out of them.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. It does lead on to the obvious question: did you have a favourite one that you drove on the show?
I really liked the Sierra Cosworth.
Is the correct answer? I'm not sorry. I'm massive. I'm of the age of the RS 500 and all that. I love all the
RS 500 was absolutely awesome, but obviously that's so different to the modern cars and stuff.
Yes.
So the McLaren Senna was incredible in terms of its performance, and the technology on it was just insane. But actually, one of the other cars that I enjoyed driving was the Ford GT, the new one. So yeah, I really enjoyed the handling of that car, but I just wanted a bit more from the engine, a bit more grunt. But again, it's a Ford GT, for goodness sake. Like, I'm picking at straws here.
Cool. Proper cool cars there. I mean, I have got on my notes here who is the better driver of the three, but that's a very tricky question, isn't it? Of the three guys.
If you could probably piece parts of all of them together, then that would be them as their best, because yeah, some are better at one thing and someone else is better at another. But yeah, they're all unique in their own special way.
Yeah, good answer. We like that. No, brilliant. Thank you. I'm just we normally go into more detail than this, folks, but we're in a bit of a dash this evening. But it's all right. It's all good. Okay. Yes, I like the next bit. 2019, you did a round of the Super 2 down in Australia on the supercar support kind of thing. It was like supercars. It's the one below, isn't it? Is it the one below? I think.
Yeah, so it's basically the feeder into supercars.
Yes.
So it's the same cars, but they might be kind of a couple of years older, and they've got different suspension and different roof and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the
the
ethos is pretty much the same.
Which is awesome, because supercars and that whole thing is just, to me, it's the best touring car series in the world. I absolutely love it. And you got to do it on the Adelaide Street. So it wasn't the full Adelaide Street circuit; it was a slightly trimmed one. But that's one that I've got a bit of a soft spot for, because it's one of my earliest motorsport memories was Nigel Mansell's tyre blowing up when I was 5 in '86. And then, even though that happened, I've always kind of liked Adelaide, and I wish F1 would go back, but I know why they can't. But firstly, how did it all come about? And secondly, what was it like driving a Holden Commodore around the streets of Adelaide?
So I had wanted to do it for a long time, probably much the same as you. Whenever it's on the TV, I'm just fixated. It's just incredible driving. And I think the drivers in those cars are really, really skilled. And I think that's kind of been proven with the boys, you know, Scotty McLaughlin and all those that have moved across into other championships and other forms of motorsport and have been so successful. So,
Shane Van Gisbergen went to NASCAR and showed them how to do it.
Exactly. You know, I've got a lot of respect for them, and who doesn't like V6 though? You know, they're incredible cars, and I'd basically campaigned to try and raise money and build the contacts to get out there. And at this time, my dad had already got the Holden Commodore across here, the old one, and he was doing an event at Brands Hatch, and there was a few Aussie drivers that basically had come over for the event. And my dad got talking to one of them and said, well, you know, let's see, I've got some contacts. Let's see what we can make happen. Basically, I flew out there to Australia and organised a couple of tests. And yeah, the test went really well. I had Warren Luff there as my driver coach, and he went to set some reference laps and so on. And this was at Winton, little circuit in Australia.
Yeah.
And yeah, ended up being, I think, a 10th off his time it was. And I was pretty chuffed with that. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to make a fool out of myself. So let's crack on. Unfortunately, we didn't actually have any enough funds to make it happen with the team that we wanted to make it happen with. But they, the championship or one of the teams had like a scholarship car where you could win basically a scholarship in the championship. Now the scholarship winner actually fell through; it didn't happen. So basically, there was this entry there, but the driver couldn't make it. So that's basically where I stepped in and utilised this drive. So it was all last minute. It was done on the Tuesday of race week. So it was a real mad panic to try and get the circuit learn, you know, the track on the simulators and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it was an incredible experience, but it's just such a tricky championship, and Adelaide is such a difficult street circuit. And in fact, that was my first ever street circuit that I ever drove.
Really?
Was Adelaide. So really, really in at the deep end. And, you know, these cars are quite difficult to kind of wrangle. And I use the word wrangle because it is exactly what you have to do with these things. And yeah, it was baptism of fire, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Kissed the wall at turn 8 as well, as a proper Aussie touring car driver has to do.
Absolutely.
And yeah, loved it. But
did you lose a wing mirror, or did you?
No, wing mirror was all right. Yeah, just kissed along the side of it a bit.
Lovely.
Yeah, we had a couple of issues with the setup on the car. Basically, it would end up, if you hit some of the bumps, it would end up getting stuck in a certain position on the dampers, and so basically you would just have no steering randomly at points through the lap. So that got my attention. But when it worked, it was awesome, and we worked out the problem. But it was a little bit too late. We'd already done race 1 and race 2. So yeah, you live and learn, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. But still, what an experience with the car. The Holden Commodore around Adelaide. I mean, that that would do. I did have a quick look on the grid though. For that race, there was Bryce Forward, Thomas Randall, Zane Goddard, Will Brown, Jake Brody, and Kurt Kostecki. I mean, that, blimey, there's some good drivers on the grid. Incredible
pedalers, really, really good. And it's nice to see them. Obviously, now they've stepped up into the main game. It's awesome to see the progression from them, because I think maybe Tom Randall maybe won the one that I did, or he was in the top 3 of the ones I did.
Yeah, it was on the King.
And he's a really nice guy. They're all nice lads as well, which is good to see.
It's lovely, yeah. And Tom Randall was at Goodwood over Thursday, Friday, and I was there Friday and Thursday, and I didn't see him because I didn't know he was there. It's quite cool. So I'm a big fan of it because he does the Castrol thing, and I love the Castrol livery. Anyway, rambling. Very cool experience. Something that was slightly different later in the year. The Jaguar I-Pace E Trophy. People sort of hear the word E and sort of turn their nose up and get all snotty about it, and I can sort of see why. We all like petrols and engines and noises and smells and stuff, but it was a cool looking car. I mean, what was it like to drive it? And you drove it around Jeddah as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so Jeddah, the circuit was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a proper cool, when you go down the hill and it's really super narrow, and that was an awesome experience. And actually, the evolution of the track was insane. Obviously, being out in Saudi, it's quite a lot of sand everywhere, and that track doesn't get used. It's not, it's a built street circuit. So there are certain parts of it that are part of the road, but a lot of it is not used until the next race comes, which is usually a year later. And it was awesome, and a great opportunity to race alongside Formula E on those weekends as well. And the car itself is kind of, it's supposed to be kept as much as a road car as possible. So it has the road car suspension, dampers, all that kind of stuff, which is great. It helps to try and keep the cost down, because actually racing with Formula E, logistic costs are absolutely huge to transport these cars. So that part of it I think is really cool, and having the element of the boost attack zone, where you basically have to drive over a couple of points and it gives you an extra just laughing at Indira Flex comment. I just had no steering, it's fine. Someone's just said that racing drivers are really nonchalant when we talk about things that go wrong, and it's just part of it. Sometimes you just can't steer. It's the way it is.
It's good. We do have to say a big hello to Indira Flack. She does the Great British Racing Drivers photography book. Fantastic book that's out there. I know you're in it, hooked up to a tea machine because we love a cup of tea. And Indira's been great. She's put me in touch with a couple of drivers. And so, Great British Racing Drivers photo book. Some absolute legends in there. Some brilliant drivers. Do go and check it out, folks. And Indira is lovely as well. We always have a laugh. So hello to Indira.
Yeah. But so the experience was awesome, and we actually tried to, or there was potential to get Jaguar UK to do a full season with us, but then it ended up the championship stopping, unfortunately. So at least I got to have a go while it was there. And I understand people kind of switch off when it comes to electric racing and EVs and all that kind of stuff. I understand, because as a proper motorsport junkie, you like the smell of the engine, the sounds, and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, when you're sat in the car, yes, there are elements that are slightly different. So the senses that you have are different, and you can hear, it's strange, you hear the braking and you hear the stones rather than the engine. But ultimately, when you're sat in the car, you're racing, and the car that's next to you, you're just bothered about racing and trying to beat them.
Yeah. And it's fast and it feels good. That's it for the driver, isn't it? Which is great. I want to touch on something very quickly. The Praga in Brit Car. You did a few races in Brit Car. I love Brit Car. The cars look absolutely brilliant. Are they as good to drive as they look?
Yeah, so when it was the second year of the Pragas coming over that I was able to jump in and have a go. And the first year they brought it over, they only had kind of I think they had 2 cars. So manpower was in abundance that year. Now, when I jumped in and had a go, I was lucky enough to be invited and asked to go in and drive the car. They basically had gone from running 2 cars to running about 10. And it was during the coming out of the pandemic as well. So there was a big old rush from the factory in Czech Republic to try and get these cars built in time. And basically there was a few issues with them. And I was only ever going to do the first 3 rounds because the other 3 clashed with the other racing that I was doing. But it was a great way for me to kind of get a bit of a taste for slicks and wings again prior to doing W Series, which is what the main goal for that year was going to be. But yeah, when they're working well, they are absolutely brilliant for sure. Really, really good fun.
Yeah, fantastic. I saw one at the Autosport show. I think it was not the year. I think it was 2023, and there was quite a crowd around them. And yeah, everyone, yeah, they're fantastic looking things. Indira Flack has just said page 46 in her book, folks. So there you go.
And it's I'm hooked up to an oil. I've got oil drip going in, so it's oil and petrol going into me.
Oil and petrol, okay.
And I just cup of tea, because Yorkshire tea.
That's it, a cup of tea.
Cup of tea and a biscuit.
I knew there was tea in there somewhere. I need to have tea. Okay, what we got here? Yeah, just looking at time. Okay, yes, you mentioned W Series, quite a shift. Obviously, because you've been doing GTs and stuff. I guess first single seater style thing since karting, I guess.
Yeah.
There was this conversation. I put a post out earlier on about the 8 girls who were racing in British F4 Zandvoort weekend, and the inevitable question of W Series and all female series and all that kind of thing came up. Just before we get into the racing, just quickly, I mean, people say it failed and all this, but it was a free seat, wasn't it? I spoke with, I think it was Sabra Cook at the start of last year, and she said it was great because I just had to turn up with my helmet and my race suit and go. There was no budget involved, and basically she said it saved her career. She's now racing. Well, she was racing in the Porsches in North America. Some people get quite down on W Series and it didn't work and it's more segregation and all that kind of stuff. I'm guessing you're not from that school of thought.
I think W Series has got its pros and cons. As any, I would say the same thing about F1 Academy as well. But ultimately, W Series succeeded in getting 20 girls that wouldn't be driving, or some would, but a lot of girls that wouldn't have otherwise been driving on the grid. And it was fully funded. We didn't have to pay for accommodation or flights or anything, nothing like that. It was just purely, you had to buy your helmet and you had to pay for your seat effectively. So, driving a Formula 3 car is not cheap at the best of times, never mind going on to a Formula 1 package. And initially, and I was pretty honest and open about it, that I wasn't the biggest fan of it. So I missed the first year, which is when they launched 2019. And I did that on purpose because I just wanted to watch what was happening. And there's been previous championships, female only championships, that have been a bit of a gimmick. And I didn't want to take part in something like that. And it became very apparent very quickly that, it was something that was not too good to be true. It was fully funded and the cars were well ran and so on. So I was lucky enough to get asked back in 2020 and went through the assessment process and got the drive for 2020. So what would have been 2020 and then COVID. We lost a bit of our lives, didn't we? So that was then postponed to 2021.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad you said that. And there's some comments coming in. My mate Chris, he said that he loved the series. I love the series as well. Nick and his camera. What a great YouTube name that is. Hello, Nick. He said it was entertaining to watch. He loved it. And Indira said that it must have been a great springboard to other things, which is what we were alluding to, isn't it? I mean, it's got, I think Emma Kimmerlinen's now out on the water blasting around and getting wet. And there's loads of other drivers doing GT racing, stuff like that. And it's a great springboard. And I'm very positive on it. And it's not just that. Something that I always touch on is some females feel a bit daunted going into a male-dominated environment and getting looked down on and talked down to and things like that, which is horrendous. W Series, there's a lot more female presence in there, and that, I guess, did it feel like almost to some, it must have felt like a safe space, or like a safer space at least, rather than being judged for being female, which is obviously not what we all want.
I think none of the drivers gave a shit about anything to do with that. It was just free racing. And out of, let's say, 18 on the grid and the 2 reserve drivers, there was probably maybe 6 or slightly more that would be able to afford to race without W Series, and the rest were just pure people without money to go racing. And if you ask the girls, would you rather have raced in a female only grid or race in a mixed grid, everyone would say mixed grid. It was purely that it was free. and that is the biggest kind of hurdle really is finance in motorsport, unfortunately. And then it comes on to, well, if there's a male driver or a female driver, which one are you going to give your money to? Most people would give it to the guy. Now that has changed a lot recently, and I think that's part of one of the positive kind of legacies left from W Series. And really, W Series was the blueprint for what now is F1 Academy. You know, without W Series doing what it's done and being successful and showing that there's an appetite for females on the grid, there's not a chance would F1 have backed or created F1 Academy. So yeah, it's definitely done good. And yes, there's a lot of people owed money. I'm owed money. All the drivers are owed money. There's a lot of contractors and vendors that are owed money as well. But ultimately, the moral goal of W Series succeeded. And as you've said, there's a lot of people that it's helped them get back into racing, and it's springboarded them onto the next step. So yeah, I can only speak positively about W Series.
Yeah, I'm very much in that camp as well. People get bogged down in they haven't got someone to F1 yet nonsense, which is just never the outright goal. But yeah, I'm very positive on it for sure. Very quickly, you hadn't driven with single seaters for a while. I guess you didn't no real expectation on yourself because of that. Excuse me. But you know, you were sort of running sort of mid-pack and got into the top sort of 10 at Silverstone and all that kind of thing. I mean, it must have been great racing on the Grand Prix weekend.
Yeah, it was the experience itself was incredible. You know, racing with a Formula One is something really cool, and obviously having a couple of home races at Silverstone and the 2 years that I did it was amazing. My kind of, I suppose I'd never really wanted to do single seaters, and I was one of the older drivers as well, and making that switch across, I kind of had a few medical issues that I was trying to manage, and it really hindered training and stuff like that. So I didn't get the most out of the experience with the driving element, and it was really frustrating, to be honest. I'd say that the driving element of it I didn't really enjoy that much, but actually everything else was awesome. Having said that, I did learn a lot. Like I learned a lot. You know, new tires every qualifying and stuff like that. You don't get new tires when we haven't got the money to put new tires on. So to have that experience and to learn with your own engineer and having the data and having the ability to look at other people's data, it taught me a lot, and I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. And yeah, it's just a shame it couldn't continue for longer. But yeah, driving at somewhere like at Singapore as well was just insane. Only a few people have driven Singapore.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Yeah, I just want to touch on the Grand Prix weekend, because I was actually at that, and obviously we had people forget we had a British winner in W Series as well. I think this winner was Alice and all that, and obviously we were all cheering you on as you went past there. It was it was great. Lots of support for the home drivers as well, which was fantastic. And we're at the time. We're going to run over a tiny bit.
You can go on a little bit longer.
Yeah, good. We're not going to be too strict. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll
because I've not had dinner, for those that have maybe just joined us. I've not had dinner. I've done a 4-hour drive, and it's 9 p.m. So I need to get some food. Yeah,
we're going to get some food, but we are going to rattle through quickly. Two obviously negative things for that year involving you. Spa was horrible. I spoke with Sarah Moore in that, and she was just it just looked bloody terrifying. Because there's nothing you could do, I guess. Was it just wet?
Yeah, so basically we were the first 6 cars to take to the circuit, and the rain was due to come at some point. So when we were on slicks, so basically it was right. Your first push lap is probably going to be the lap because it's probably going to rain, and so we were out, warming our tires up as much as we can on this out lap, so that the first push lap is kind of the tires probably are not going to be quite there, but they'll be good enough to do the lap, and then it's going to downpour. But by the time the cars at the end of the pit lane had joined the circuit, it actually rained at Rouge. So we're probably at the end of Kemmel Straight warming our tyres up, and it just rained there. Now, usually Spa will put up little raindrop signs if there's been rain, because obviously it's so huge that one side of the circuit can have a downpour and the other cannot. But for whatever reason, they weren't displayed, and it wasn't wet enough to look and visually see that it was wet. Basically, the first 6 cars that got there all went off into the buzzers and into each other. So, yeah, not ideal.
No, it was awful, wasn't it? It was a horrible accident. I think it was Bart's good vessel, wasn't it, who got shunted up in the air and
Fish kebabbed by Fabienne.
yes, yeah, it was.
Well,
Oh yeah, horrible thing, but no real long lasting damage, I guess, in the end. But it was horrible to see. Speaking of long lasting damage, I don't really want to talk about this kind of thing, but it's inevitable.
give the
Circuit
people
of
what they want.
Circuit of the Americas. It, the start of a pretty pants few months for you. I think is anyone who's seen the page, if ever there's an incident with a sausage curb, I'm all over it because I've always said they're the most ridiculous creations ever, and I'm quite sure you agree. There's just no need for them. What on earth? Why put a big lump of concrete or whatever it is in the way of a car? I mean, the one at Kota, from the outside, it looked a bit innocuous. It looked like the car lifted up, and it obviously wasn't. What actually happened?
Yeah, so the sausage curbs in America are like sausage curbs on steroids. They're huge, and I remember doing the track walk and being like, "Oh my god, look at the size of those! Like they're absolutely huge, like
Like a
almost the
small
size
car.
of a bottle." You know, you can get like the big Red Bull cans, like the
Yeah.
big ones, like as high as those, huge. And some of them would also have like a square top on it as well, so it's not rounded. It would have like a lid to it, and yeah, basically I just ran slightly wide on the exit of one of the corners, really slow corner, and it basically jumped me, and basically the tub of the car kind of hit on one and it jumped me, and then I landed directly on another, which is what compressed my back and then fired me in the air. So, you know, the actual incident itself externally doesn't look particularly too extreme, but
Hmm.
just the awkwardness of the compression, that's what broke my back basically. And you know, the following day actually a 15-year-old kid had the same injury from the same incident. So yeah, not my finest moment. And it was like, if I'd broken my back in the Spa crash, I'd be like, yeah, you'd be like, yeah, of course she's broken her back in that. But
Yeah.
running over a little sausage curb, it's yeah, it's a bit embarrassing really.
Oh, crikey. Well, yeah, definitely no one would ever use the word embarrassing for that. I mean, and obviously, I remember reading somewhere that you said it was like the worst pain you could imagine. I mean, you obviously knew something really bad had happened. Um, I mean, what can you remember what happened in the car with the marshals or anything, or was it?
Yeah, but I knew straight away I'd broken my back. Before I'd even landed, I knew I'd broken my back, and I heard it crunch. It was like an empty Coke can going. Um,
Oh,
and I remember looking at the sky, or pointing to the sky, and I remember thinking, I think I've just broken my back, and then landed and had to. There was a Rolex advertising sign, had to dodge that because I thought, well, I don't want to have any. In fact, I didn't even think. I just reacted, and then immediately was on the intercom to my engineer saying, or trying to tell him that I said, I've really hurt my back. And he couldn't hear me because I was winded and trying to get my words out, but not moving as well because I was worried, you know, that I was going to do further damage. And yes, and I've broken my back. I've broken my back. And then there was just confusion at the track basically. And they actually ended up doing, I was just in the yellow flag, just pulled off at the side of the road, and the pack of cars came past me twice, bearing in mind it's a 2-minute lap. So that's 4 minutes where no one had got to me. And in the end, I started getting on the radio and saying, you know, because the FIA monitor the messages that you give to your engineer. And I remember saying, why have you not red flagged this? Like, I've broken my back. I've broken my back. Like, you know, I need help. And eventually the rescue team got to me, and they'd been given the wrong information. They just told me that I'd had a mechanical, and you know, the information wasn't passed on. And these poor guys were basically trying to push me back through a gap in the barriers. And they were shouting like, turn the wheel, turn the wheel, you need to turn the wheel. And I was just like, I couldn't shout because you can't move. And you know what I think I probably didn't realize is your ribs attached to your spine. So if my spine's moved, my whole rib cage has moved as well. And I couldn't really get my words out. And eventually the guys got pissed off and moved the wheel for me, pushed me back, crouched next to me, and they were like, hey, like, what's the matter? Why can't you get out the car? And I'm like, I've broken my back. And then it was like bang into action. And Obviously, Kota is a very, very big place, and the
Mm.
safety crew were on the other side of the track. So
Oh.
it took them another kind of 5-10 minutes to get to me. And in that time, the rescue guys that had come, they were really nice. You know, once they'd realised actually what happened, they were super nice. And I took my helmet off, just sat with my hands device on. I got them to unclip it, and because I couldn't, I wanted some air, I couldn't really breathe, and yeah, just having little really short breaths because I didn't want to move my rib cage too much. And then they extracted me out the car and put me on a spinal board. And I remember saying to them, they were like, "Do you want morphine, or do you want some painkillers?" And I was like, "No," because I was thinking maybe it's just in the moment I'm exaggerating the pain, and actually if they give me morphine or ketamine or something, I'm not going to be able to race tomorrow if the opportunity allows me to. So I refused it. I refused it for ages. And then when we went to be airlifted, I got taken up in the helicopter, and just before in fact, no, we flew to one hospital and it was full. So then we had to take off again. And just before we took off, I was like, "Can I have some drugs now, please?" No. Yeah, I was like, if I'm okay, I don't want to race tomorrow. So I got all the nice drugs to make things feel better, and find
Wow.
out I broke my back. So
Wow.
yeah, my poor mum in the UK watching it from afar. Well, actually,
Yeah.
she didn't, because they didn't show anything that had happened. So mum was ringing me and I wasn't answering. And the week prior, I'd actually been in hospital having a procedure done on my neck anyway, which is the previous medical stuff I'd struggled with. So she thought it was something to do with my neck.
Right.
And I remember when I was in the medical unit, I said to the health and safety guy that was with us, I was like, "Can you make sure you get my phone? It's in my helmet case. Like when you come to the hospital, can you bring my phone so I can speak to my mum?" And then rang my mum and was like, "Broke my back." I think I FaceTimed her actually from a neck brace in my bed. I remember like getting the phone. "Hi, mum." She's like, "Oh, what have you done?"
What's happened?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So
Wow.
yeah, poor mum.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. That 15 minutes must have felt like an eternity.
Yeah, it was not nice.
And obviously the recuperation, I'm not going to go into the recuperation. I mean, I saw an interview you did, you were lying on the sofa talking about it. And that must have
Yeah.
been the worst bit, having to lie on your back and just not do anything. And
It was just frustrating.
Yeah.
But the first 6 weeks, I was quite happy to do nothing because it was so painful. And then after that, as soon as I was given the go ahead that I could start rehab, I just gave it 100% because I just wanted to get back in the car as soon as I could. So gave it full force, and that was my job basically. I saw it as my job was to get better, and was able to get back in a car 6 months later and
Wow.
take to W Series again, completely out of condition. And I dropped 6 kilos of weight of muscle, and the first round at Miami was the most physical thing I've ever done, and it was the hottest race I've ever done. So yeah, just to survive that was all right.
Wow. And get back racing, and yeah, it's just fantastic. And Chris Gurry, he actually asked a couple of questions earlier, which we're going to come to now. He says, firstly, how are you now, a few years on?
Doing all right.
Right.
Back's kind of as good as it's going to be. I was just trying to crack it then, actually. I need to go. I have to have physio quite often to loosen everything up, because basically it just locks stiff, and I can feel when it locks stiff, and it's really painful. So once I go to see an awesome physio, I've got a couple of physios that look after me, and they're brilliant. And it just takes a bit of maintenance and a lot of strength building around that area now. So I can't complain. At the end of the day, it could have been a lot worse. So can't complain.
Good stuff. Yeah, Chris actually said earlier on, he said that he actually broke his back whilst racing, and he's obviously followed you since your accident. And he just said, yeah, he was just interested to know about your injury and how it's been treated. But yeah, so that's all good. Thank you, Chris. Right, okay. So you got back racing, did W Series, and obviously then it very sadly was curtailed for the reasons. But you've been racing around in like Lamborghinis, which is always a good thing. Back in GTs, was it okay with the back once you got back in the big, heavier car? Was it? Was everything all right?
Yeah, so it was fine in GT cars because you have power steering and stuff like that. So the physical element wasn't quite as aggressive as in a single seater. And obviously I'd done that year of W Series anyway, so I'd kind of built the resilience back up from that. Back in GT cars was great. Back in the cars that I love and enjoy, and I was lucky enough to be approached by an investor to set up a team, which is basically, it's Rebellion Motorsport is what it's called. That's the logo. And we basically just want to make a platform to try and kind of tackle the inaccessibility issues of motorsport. So, the goal is to kind of raise investment and try and help fund or subsidize other drivers that want to kind of get a drive in certain things. So we have our Rebellio athletes, and also if people want to come and experience kind of how to do the media side of things or mechanics and that kind of stuff. So we're actually currently looking at some changes for next year. So we're going to try and do something even bigger and even better. But for the moment, we did Lamborghini Super Trofeo last year, which was great, racing in Europe, and who doesn't want to race a Lambo in Europe? And then this year we've brought it to the UK and racing Porsche Carrera Cup. So yeah, great experience. I'm really enjoying racing the Porsches this year.
Yeah, fantastic. And they've slightly changed over the years. Obviously, we had Stephen Jelly on the other week. He said the 992 is completely different to what he raced previously. And they sound good. That was the thing that got me when I collared you at Thruxton. They just all sound excellent, and they do look quite fun to drive, especially around Thruxton.
Yeah, Thruxton is. Yeah, I've never actually raced at Thruxton until this round, and in the Carrera Cups, you're doing like 170 plus before the chicane, so it's pretty nippy around there. Yeah, it cracks on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, obviously, I guess this season's all about just like learning the car and just like progressing and just doing what you can in the first season, I guess.
Yeah, most people and Tim Harvey will say you need a year or two in these things to really understand and get the most out of them. And I can understand why, that you're told how to do it. And we've got, I've got Harry King as a driver coach for the team with Team
Love
Parker.
Harry. He's a good guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't know about these cars, isn't worth knowing. So, I've got the best team around me, and the theory of it makes sense. But actually, it's so competitive this year. To get in the top 8, you need to do a perfect lap, and even if you drop half a tenth, that's like 4 or 5 places down the grid you'll be. So, there's some incredible drivers that have raced Carrera Cup previously that have come back into it and also moved across from touring cars with Stephen and George Gamble and people like that. So, at Donington, I think it was 24 cars on the grid and we're all separated by 0.7 of a second. So it's insanely close, but it's a great arena to learn in. And obviously with these level of drivers on the grid, it's only going to push everyone's level up higher.
Yeah, fantastic. Great stuff. Quick question there from Defan Evans. Evening, Defan. Tunes in regularly. Good man. It says, is BTCC the goal for the future, or would you ever consider the BTCC?
Definitely. 100%. I would definitely have a go in touring cars, but only in a BMW because rear wheel drive.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, WSR are great. So, yeah, I'd love to do it, but it's just so expensive. It's like 3 times the amount of money to do Porsche Carrera Cup.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Pricey business. Very quickly, one something I want to touch on is quite pertinent this week with Ralph Schumacher and his wonderful announcement. We're very, love is love and we love it. Very, very, brave of Ralph to come out and do that in F1. You're a ambassador for racing. For Racing Pride, which is great. Obviously, we've had Sarah Moore's been on, and we've had Matt Bishop on here, who's love Matt. Who doesn't love Matt? Personally, for you, that must be a really cool thing to be involved with.
Yeah, I just think it's important to try and use the kind of little following that I've got to try and just, I suppose, reach more people that, I don't tend to shout about my sexuality and I never have done. It's kind of a part of me. It doesn't define me. And, I just thought, especially after my involvement with the Grand Tour and the kind of platform that I was given on it, that I kind of needed to try and do something with it. And, you know, if I can live authentically as me and kind of inspire others, and talk about it every now and then with Racing Pride, and if that makes a difference for someone that's maybe struggling or not particularly confident with what to do, or worried about how people might perceive them differently or whatever, you know, I hope that they'll see me, you know, as a gay woman in a male-dominated sport, you know, being successful, and people like me for me, and you know, it doesn't define you who you're with. And I remember a story that I had when I was doing a charity kart race. It was Karen Chandok's karting race, and this girl came up to me and said, you know, I've been really struggling with my sexuality and how to come out to my parents. And then I saw you on the telly, and I kind of looked into what you do, and you know, who you are, and it basically inspired me to come out to my parents. And she said it went really well. So that, you know, that to me just proves it's all worth it being part of an organization like that. And just helping with education as well. So you'll have to get Rich on, actually, Rich Morris, if you've not had him on. It's great what he's doing, and he's put together. And we do training camps and workshops at Aston Martin and Red Bull and Mercedes, and, you know, all the F1 teams and so on. So it's yeah, something great, really.
Fantastic. Now there's an idea. Fantastic. I'm sorry. I mean, in my family, there's a member of my family had to wait 55 years to come out because of the generational thing.
Yeah.
And they were worried how we were going to react, and you know, and our only thing that we were annoyed about was we weren't invited to the wedding. We weren't invited.
No, what? No.
Come on, we're gonna have a party.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely love to hear that. And if anyone's got a problem with that, then you might want to take yourself away. Yeah, love that. Okay, very quickly, because we've run over a bit. We're going to get some fun questions that I always ask here at the end. One of them was asked right at the very start, so we're going to start with that. It was James Seal. It was James. Hello again, James. He says, have you got a favourite circuit that you've raced on, and why?
Alton Park. Love it. Always have done. I think ever since I was younger, and we went there in Sax Max. You know, it's a really technical circuit, and you have to respect the circuit. It will bite you when it wants to, quite easily. And I've always gone well there, and I've always loved it. So yeah, Alton Park's my favourite still. And you know, I've been lucky. I've driven at Spa, I've driven at Singapore. You know, but good old Alton Park in the UK, still doing it for me. Yeah,
don't knock it. Yeah, I've always said whichever circuit I go to. Indianapolis is pretty cool, but it's always Brands Hatch for me. First one I ever went to all those years ago. Still love it. Still a brilliant circuit.
Nice.
Good old British ones.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite car that you've raced? I mean, you've raced loads.
Oh, Carrera Cup.
Is it really? Well,
yep.
Hey.
Yep. It's just taken the lead.
Fantastic. Love that. Okay, quick one. Did you have a favourite driver when you were growing up, apart from your dad?
Probably Schumacher. So when I was watching F1, it was when Shuey was in his kind of dominating era. So yeah, probably Shuey. And then I really like Jenson Button as well. And you know, the Canadian win that he had, the Canadian Grand Prix, that really sticks out in my mind, when it was
crazy,
wet, drying, slippy conditions, and he was just awesome. And I really liked, you know, how he conducted himself off the circuit a few times in interviews as well. So yeah, probably those two.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Oh, Indira Flack. Favourite biscuit? I knew biscuits were going to come up. We love a biscuit.
Actually, do you know what, Indira? I think it's changed from when we did our photo shoot. So it was the M&S more chocolate than biscuit. They were my favourites. But, and I like, if someone brings me a packet, I'm going to eat them. Like, I'm not going to knock them. But I think now caramel digestives have well and truly topped it.
Oh, see that? Yeah.
Don't ever get me a pack, because I will eat the entire thing.
Indira's not happy. She's just written no.
Look, Indira, you need to go try them, okay? And then you can report back to me, and I'm sure you'll say I've made the right decision.
You'll be a convert. You'll be absolutely right. Yeah, she said that she is going to try them. Absolutely. Wonderful stuff. Okay. Is there one series that you'd love to have a go at? I mean, we kind of touched on supercars. I get the feeling that might be towards the top. Is there anything that you'd love to have a go at?
World Rallycross.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I would give up all my circuit racing if I could race World Rallycross. Love it. So I did actually have an opportunity to race in European Rallycross series, and it was awesome, and I loved it. That was 2019. Yeah, 2019 I did that, and it was just the best fun. So yeah, I want to do that.
Wow, yeah, that's very cool. I was a big fan of Rallycross back in the day, but when it was old Brands Hatch years and getting cold and wet and foggy, Brands Hatch, proper racing. Okay, final question, and it's an absolute rotter of a question. I ask it for everyone. Sorry about this. You've shared the track with a lot of great drivers. I'm just going to name a few. I mean, some of the guys from Supercars you mentioned earlier. You've actually shared the track with guys like Sandy Mitchell and Ian Loggy, like Danny Huncadella, the Nearies, James Collado, who's won Le Mans apparently, and like Rima Jafali and all the girls from W Series and Will Stevens and Luca Filippi and all these fantastic drivers that you've raced with, even Paul Hollywood. Are there any that stand out in your mind as not being the best, but just being really, really good? And you can't say Jessica Hawkins.
I think there's a lot of drivers that are really underrated and that haven't had the opportunity, that actually don't race anymore and have missed out on opportunities. I remember Kieran Vernon was a friend of mine. He did actually do a couple of rounds in Porsche Carrera Cup, but he was always super fast in anything he did. But it's just a shame that the money basically ended his journey onwards. So he would be one that I'd pick. And yeah, I think obviously Harry King is insane in these cars, isn't he? So
he is, yeah, he's insane in most things. And when you talk to him, he doesn't realize how good he is. He's sort of like, oh well, yeah, I'm all right.
I think he does, but he's just very humble. He's been
probably is the one to shout it about.
Yeah.
Harry, fantastic. Right, we said it was going to be an hour. It's been an hour and 21 minutes. We're going to let you go and get some dinner. Firstly, thank you everyone for tuning in and for the questions. I hope we've covered them all. Really appreciate it. But of course, biggest thanks to you, Abbie, for coming and joining us, especially after a 4-hour drive and being in a hotel. Really, really appreciate you coming on, having a chat. It's been great.
That's all right. My pleasure.
Fantastic. And obviously good luck for the rest of the season as well to you and everyone at Team Parker. Excellent team, good people, and a good series. So we wish you the best.
Thanks.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week. We're announcing one on Thursday evening, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Appreciate your support as always. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time around. Cheers.